How's it going, everybody? This is Dominic Minchella. I am the Kansas City Chiefs co-beat writer for On SI and the host of the Kansas City Chiefs Insider Podcast. Thank you guys so much for stopping in once more as we follow up with more discussion about how the Kansas City Chiefs lost their Week 11 matchup against the Denver Broncos. One that I really felt in. You could have asked a lot of people that this was a game where Kansas City really needed to win. Especially now where they're sitting in the AFC West. They are trailing behind the Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers. I guess the only saving grace from losing this game against the Broncos is that the Los Angeles Chargers also lost in Week 11. But regardless, this is the first time Kansas City has been in this position in the Patrick Mahomes era this late into a season. At a 500 record, I have said to you multiple times moving forward, especially going into that last game, and now more so than ever going into the rest of the regular season, that Kansas City needs to start winning. They have no other way or no other person but to blame but themselves, unfortunately. They have a roster filled top-end talent. Patrick Mahomes, two-time MVP. Travis Kelce just set a franchise touchdown scoring leader franchise record. The way, however you want to describe it, he's a superstar in himself. You've got veterans, you've got assets on the offensive side of the ball, you've got veteran leadership on the defensive side of the ball. On paper, this Kansas City Chiefs team should be better, and I'm sure that they would tell you that too from all the press conferences that we have seen and the dialogue that we have heard. It is a Kansas City Chiefs team that just knows that the blame has to start with somebody, and I don't necessarily feel like there is a blame really being taken. And it's, I guess, other than Patrick Mahomes, unless you're on the offensive side of the ball. And really, when it comes down to that game against the Broncos, the defense kept you in as long as they could. They had a very strong game. I felt if you're holding a team to 19, 18 points through the 4 quarters and then you lose by a field goal, it's almost like your offense really kind of lets you down in the game. But kudos to the Broncos' defense for improving once again why they are a top defense in the National Football League. But for today's podcast, as we normally always do after a game for the Kansas City Chiefs, we dive into the starting offensive linemen and how they performed, since it was such a big topic last season as to why the Chiefs fell in their pursuit of another Super Bowl championship. I figured that I started this podcast series, episodic series, way back all the way, I believe, in week 2, week 3 of discussion for the Kansas City Chiefs. So far, there's been a lot of ups and downs, but without further ado, let's dive into the starting offensive lineman grades according to Pro Football Focus for the game. Now, you got starting left tackle. You had a return for Josh Simmons, the Chiefs' 2025 first-round draft pick. And, it wasn't necessarily the biggest return that they were really looking for. While his presence was felt, definitely, there was some things that you could tell he was a little rusty with, having missed 3 weeks, I believe. He had an overall grade of a 59.6, a pass blocking grade of a 73.1 in 56 pass blocking snaps out of his 70 that he played in the game. So really, that area was good. What he struggled with was his run blocking. He had an overall grade of a 49.8, and that happened in 14 run blocking snaps. He also had a penalty against him. It really just everything that could have happened in a return game for a rookie as an offensive lineman. There was some highs, there was some lows, there was some things that take away, but definitely you could see it was a little bit out of sync. But, really, though, this was a really, really big game for the rookie Josh Simmons, and I thought that for what it was in the hype and the momentum, he did as well as he could possibly do. Going forward, though, the offensive line, especially on the left side, has got to be a little bit more improved. Kingsley Suamataia, in total, 50 total snaps played. He had an overall grade of a 56.5, which is below Josh Simmons, which is a tad concerning. He had a pass blocking grade of a 67.5 and a run blocking grade of a 59.8. And, Kingsley has had his moments where he's shined, but he's also had his moments where he struggled. But if I give criticism and only criticism to when he struggles, then I would be impartial and unfair analyst and reporter. And to think that, this season for Kingsley, he's had his ups and downs. This season, according to Pro Football Focus, he's a lot better than he was last year. He's still a below average type of defender, but he's played a whole lot more. He's had 2 penalties on him this season called, not necessarily enforced, but called. His overall grade this season is a 64.2. Last season, throughout the games that he played, was a 37.6. So you can't say that he's not taking steps in the right direction. Unfortunately, it was just the direction didn't necessarily benefit in this game against the Broncos. I still have faith in Kingsley, former second-round pick, and I think the Chiefs Kingdom should be as well, unless they find themselves looking to improve the offensive line again this offseason, depending. And, after watching how the season has gone, I can very easily tell or could predict there's a lot of free agents that are going into the game or into the offseason for Kansas City, that I think that there is a area where, they could definitely look to improve, and they're going to lose some guys if they want to, unless they want to free up some cap space. But center Creed Humphrey, one of his down games of the season. In fact, according to Pro Football Focus, this was his second worst game played this season, and he was on a tear from week 4 until week 9. But against the Broncos, he had an overall grade of a 62.9, and that's just kind of not the player that he is whatsoever. He had a 61.1 pass blocking grade and a 62.7 run blocking grade, which is, I guess you can deem it average, but for him and the way that I've talked about him being a top end center and arguably the best center in the National Football League, it's an area that you'd like to see him improve on. But, sometimes players just have those games. It's unfortunate that game had to have happened in such a quote-unquote must-win scenario. Trey Smith, right guard, 70 total snaps played. 56 of them were pass blocking. 14 of them were run blocking. He had an overall grade of a 70.5, a run blocking grade of a 63.3, and a pass blocking grade of a 63.3 and a run blocking grade of a 71.7. He also had that penalty called, but it wasn't necessarily enforced. But, him being the best one at 70.5 is a little concerning for the offensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs, but unfortunately you can't go back and fix it. That's just the way that you live life at the moment. Going forward, definitely I know that they're all gonna try their best to step up, because they definitely need to, because it's now or never, ladies and gentlemen. And right tackle Jawan Taylor, once again the weak link on the offensive line. He had a 47.6 overall offensive grade, 56.3 pass blocking grade, and a 44.1 run blocking grade. And I'm not trying to always feel like I'm dogging on Jawan Taylor. Not at all. But just this season, when you're looking at it, he's had like a lot of games below average compared to the normal or the regular right tackle. And it's not necessarily a point of where I'm trying to pick on him. It's just what I'm looking at, the facts, ladies and gentlemen. Offensively this season, he has an overall average grade of a 49.9, which is not terrific for, if anyone, that's well below average. He has a pass blocking grade of a 64.4. That's his bright spot, and even then it's a little bit below average. And he has a run blocking grade, which he hasn't been good at all this season in terms of PFF. He has an average of 40.4 overall grade, and a lot of the penalties aren't ever favorable in his for him either. So going forward, the Indianapolis Colts, they take on the Kansas City Chiefs next. The offensive line, the starting offensive line that is going to go out there. You've got to hold up and you've got to step up if this franchise has any means of or modes of wanting to succeed as they go down the line. But that being said, be sure you follow me over on X. Let me know your thoughts about the offensive line and where you think that need to improve on. It's obviously still an issue for Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes, once again, a third game in a row where he's been sacked 3 times, 3 games straight, and it's not looking good for him to be explosive in the pocket. You can't always just blame it on him. There's on the offensive line, there are some times where Patrick Mahomes just didn't make some of his throws, but it is something to allude to. You can't always talk positively about things or optimistically if there wasn't necessarily anything optimistic to be displayed, especially on the offensive side of the football against a team that you could have beaten with successful opportunities. You can also follow us over at KC Chiefs on SI over on X and Facebook. Everything gets posted there. You're not going to want to miss any coverage of the Kansas City Chiefs because Kansas City Chiefs on SI is the place to get your Kansas City Chiefs news. As always, folks, I will see you tomorrow. Be kind to one another.